Hi, this is Chris Barnthouse of the NAIFA-Indiana Communications Committee and your host for NAIFA-Indiana this month, the July edition. I'm joined by Kevin Bell, past president of NAIFA-Indiana and past NAIFA National Trustee. He has a Series 7, 63, 66, and 24 licenses and is president of Horizon Planning Group in Indianapolis. In accordance with CDC guidelines, since we are not wearing masks, we will be maintaining our 6-foot social distance. Hey Kevin, so how far apart are we?
It says 72 inches, which is 6 feet. I think we're good.
Okay, we're social distance. Kevin, this month, many of our members are coping with the SEC best interest rule. Now, this isn't the first time we've had to contend with the best interest rule, is it?
No, it's not. We've had several occasions, one with FINRA, which basically got quashed, but the main one was with the Department of Labor. And the Department of Labor was trying to impose a fiduciary standard on basically everything we did in the industry. NAIFA took up the banner and sued the Department of Labor in Texas, won the lawsuit basically, but the lawsuit also said the SEC has jurisdiction over this type of definition of whether it be best interest or fiduciary standard.
So Kevin, what do our members need to know about this rule?
Well, first of all, you need to make sure that you work with your broker-dealer, because every broker-dealer will treat the rule a little bit differently and will call the forms differently. What I'm going to talk about is what my broker-dealer calls the various forms that are required in this disclosure. The other thing is you need to know that it is probably still very unsettled in terms of what actually has to be done. I think the exact number is 1,700 pages in this regulation, which is huge, and there's a lot of nooks and crannies in there. So I don't expect we're all done with the interpretation of how this works. But what we need to know is that when you're dealing with variable products, that includes variable life, variable annuities, mutual funds, registered investment advisory products, that you have to be concerned about the best interest rule and what it does and how it works. Maybe it would be best, Chris, if we go to a slideshow that I prepared that basically kind of outlines the various steps in your sales process and the various forms that are required in each one.
So, Chris, we're going to talk about the SEC regulation BI. The effective date of that was June 30th, 2020. And so the end result is if you are not aware of it, you should be. You should be following it all through the month of July. If you haven't, then I would urge you to talk to your broker-dealer. Something as a note of disclosure, always check with your compliance department to determine what specific steps you need to take and your broker-dealer is requiring of you, because every broker-dealer is going to be different. So we got to make sure that you're compliant, but you're compliant with your broker-dealer. So when we look at the regulation, basically there were about 1,700 different pages of regulation. So even though I think that we kind of get a gist for what's going on, there may be a lot of little niches that the end result is we have changes, usually started by your broker-dealer. So those are the things that we're really going to want to watch for, especially over the next few months. What it basically does, it requires every broker-dealer to act in the best interest of its clients, its retail customers, whenever making a recommendation of any securities transaction investment involving securities. So it's really any type of involvement with your client, whether it be new or existing client, involving securities. Now, what it doesn't cover and what is not applicable to in terms of the BI disclosure is the registered investment advisory side. And so if you're a registered investment advisor and sell registered investment advisory products, then you may only have to have one or two of the three disclosures that we're going to look at. Secondly, it enhances the broker-dealer standard of conduct beyond existing suitability obligations. So our standard prior to the BI was suitability. And suitability said it's given all the facts and circumstances, it was suitable for the investor. This takes it a notch up, not to the fiduciary regulation, but a notch above suitability when making recommendations to the client. So there are basically 5 different steps we're going to look at when we meet with the prospect to gather information, when we're required to provide disclosure, when we review the prospect and make a recommendation specifically to the client, when we document the recommendation and the recommendation specifically that we're making, and where you document it. So let's take a little time and look at each one separately. So the first one is a client meeting. And the client meeting is one that you really don't have to worry too much about giving any sort of disclosure at that point. You get to know your client, and with a new prospect, you're taking information, you're gathering that information and going to come back to them with a recommendation. The second step is one where we start looking at where disclosures have to be given. So disclosures must be provided at or before the time of a recommendation of any new account, product, or service. So there are three basic recommendations. The first one is we call it a capacity disclosure. And that essentially allows the client to know what you are licensed to sell. So if you're Series 6 and 63, you can sell mutual funds, you can sell variable annuities, you can sell unit investment trust. If you're 7, you can sell other things, stocks, bonds, limited partnerships, that type of thing. So it basically tells them who you are, what your licenses are, and what products you can sell. The second disclosure is Form CRS. We call that Client Relationship Summary. And what that does is give them the ability to tell in what capacity you're working, the types of arrangements you have with your broker-dealer, and specifically if there are any conflicts. Those two documents can be, with our broker-dealer, can be emailed to the client without a problem, and it can be done in between the first meeting that we had with them and the second meeting where we're making recommendations. The final one is the Reg Bi Disclosure. That's a lot more pages than that. I think ours is about 20 pages long. Frankly, I don't know how many of our clients are going to read any of these, but it's there. Those 20 pages go into your broker-dealer. It goes into part of what we can do, how we get compensated, how the broker-dealer gets compensated, and all the products that are available. So it's a big document. And again, that has to be given. For us, we either have to mail it to the client before or at the recommendation time, or we have to give that to them in person. So the recommendation, it's important to know what a recommendation is because it's kind of deceptive. A recommendation is generally a call to action, must be in the best interest of the prospect. It can include buy, sell, or hold. And that's the one where you could get caught up. Especially when the market was tanking the first part of this year, your client called up and they were panicked and they said, "What should we do?" Just hold your ground, because that's what we're in the investments for the long run. So we say, hold your ground. That is a recommendation, unfortunately. And so with that, you have to disclose. You have to give them a disclosure regarding that. If you've already given them the capacity and the CRS, you don't have to give that again, but you have to give the best interest disclosure, which means you have to mail it to them or hand it to them in person. Other broker-dealers may have the capacity to give that to them via email. And so you need to check with your broker-dealer to make sure. And then when you're making a recommendation, you got to compare other investments. We're going to see that in the documentation section that follows. Where do you make the documentation? Well, if you have a CRM, we use Smart Office. If you use a different CRM, Redtail or whatever it might be, you've got to, again, check with your broker-dealer because they have to get into that CRM and look at it and review it for best interest, not suitability anymore, but for best interest, and making sure that you met the requirements for meeting the best interest rule. They may also have set up a separate type of a document that you have to upload various types of information. And that's called, for us, it's an activity capture tool. Now, it's important to know that you've got to compare and contrast. It's got the date in which the disclosures were provided have to be in there, the type of recommendation, the rationale for why the recommendation is in the client's best interest, and reasonable alternatives available. Now, that's where it gets a little tough because if you need to use various tools that may be available in the industry, like the Morningstar Advisor is a great one where you can compare mutual funds. There's an annuity advisory platform that you can compare annuities. If you're doing rollovers, we have a rollover comparison tool. So, by the way, this is not only for non-qualified money, but this is for also qualified money in rolling into IRAs from qualified plans. So, document. That's going to be the critical key in terms of meeting the best interest rule. And we know for most of us, we aren't really good at documenting, so we got to get in the habit of doing it. And by the way, your various departments who are in charge of evaluating whether you hit the best interest rule bogeys will be calling you if you don't document correctly and give them the correct information. So with that said, it's not as bad as it sounds initially. You have to create a process and a habit in order to make sure you get all the steps that you need to meet the best interest rule. NAIFA did a great job in giving input in terms of this regulation. Otherwise, it would have been a lot more difficult to deal with from a practical point of view. Yes, it's 3 additional pieces of paper. Hopefully, most of them eventually will be able to be delivered by email.
Now, Kevin, how does this rule affect our members who do not deal in securities or variable investment products?
That's a good question, Chris, and it really doesn't. So if you're not licensed to sell securities, you don't need to worry about the best interest rule, although you should be practicing it in practice. You don't have the formal requirements that those of us who are regulated by the security side do.
Kevin, why does the government feel compelled to keep making rules that complicate our advisory relationships with our clients?
Well, Chris, unfortunately, it's mainly because of a few bad actors, and they've done some things that have caught the attention of regulators in particular. And remember, regulators are not elected. So it takes 1 or 2 or 3 complaints, and all of a sudden it's on their radar. If people would just abide by the NAIFA Code of Ethics, which is basically says we'll act in the best interest of our clients, we wouldn't have to have all these regulations. And as NAIFA members, we have to abide by them in order to be that member.
So, Kevin, is there anything else you'd like to share with our members while we have your time?
Well, first of all, if you know someone who's not a member of NAIFA, you need to have them join. Because of stuff like this. And NAIFA had very significant input in the best interest regulation development. I suspect, and I saw earlier drafts of it, but it would have been a lot more difficult than this is, even though this seems, we have a lot of steps. But it's a notch down from that fiduciary requirement that we have if you're a registered investment advisory firm. So NAIFA is important to developing not only legislation and stopping legislation, but also in the regulation side where we can't elect new people, they're appointed. So that regulation side becomes very important to be a NAIFA member. So encourage those who are not members to join because of items like this.
Thank you, Kevin. Those are words to live by. Thank you for your time. Thank you for your advice, and thank you for your many years of service to NAIFA and the industry. And to our viewers out there, we look forward to seeing you next time for the August edition of NAIFA-Indiana This Month. And we're joined today by Adam Baker, State Farm agent from New Albany, Indiana, and a recently joined member. Adam, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Adam, tell us a little about yourself and your background.
My name is Adam Baker. Been with State Farm pretty much all my life. I'm a second-generation agent. My father has been with State Farm for the last 36 years. So from picking up trash to filing papers, I learned from the ground up about the insurance business. And now as a business owner now in New Albany, Indiana, I'm here to create my own legacy.
Well, great. Now, you grew up kind of with State Farm. How long have you been with State Farm?
Officially since I was 17, so for the last 13 years.
Okay, so you've been around for 13 years. How did you hear about NAIFA after 13 years?
Once I opened my agency here in New Albany in September, a local agent, I have 2 local agents that are heavily involved with NAIFA. They invited me to come out, and I got to join in on a meeting where we fellowshipped, got to hear some speakers, got to hear about what NAIFA is pretty much all about. So once I went to that meeting and had that experience, it was a no-brainer for me to join.
That's great. Now, how is your membership met your expectations since you joined?
It's been great so far. I get support from the local NAIFA members at our chapter, as far as people reaching out, especially during COVID. Get the emails as far as any changes or any news topics that are affecting our industry on a weekly basis. And then also I get notifications of any free CE classes or any resources here in our area as well.
Yeah, speaking of CE, have you been able to attend any of our online CE classes since you joined?
I have not, due to scheduling conflicts.
So we'll look forward to you being able to join that. Now, you've joined after our graduated membership due structure came in. Did that have any impact on your decision to join?
No impact at all.
Okay, so you think there's a pretty good value regardless of what the cost is?
Correct, yes, sir.
Now, as long as I have you on the air, you have the ear of all the leadership. So what would you like to tell your fellow NAIFA members and your state leadership as long as you're here with us?
I would just want to make it more known about the things that we do in the community, the things that we do for the state, and on the local levels as well. Basically, what I would want to hear as far as what other insurance agents and business owners and financial advisors are, how they're navigating through this COVID time. But any new developments as far as advertising for recruiting of new members, and also new developments in our industry.
Okay, thanks, Adam. Thanks for joining us, and we look forward to working you into the future. Welcome to NAIFA, and we expect this to be a very long and happy relationship.
Proud to be a part.
Thank you, Adam, and we look forward to seeing you sometime in the future when we don't have to social distance.
Look forward to it.
Many experts predict the long-term care insurance industry is about to experience explosive growth, and NAIFA wants to help you be on the cutting edge. The reason for the renewed interest in long-term care insurance is this little guy. That's right, the coronavirus. While COVID-19 has been shutting down the economy and forcing social distancing, it has been ravaging nursing homes. The July 23rd edition of the Indianapolis Star reported that 53% of COVID-19 fatalities were nursing home residents. That makes nursing homes the most dangerous place to be right now. Unfortunately, nursing homes are the ultimate destination for the uninsured. It is only those who have planned for their long-term care who will be able to stay at home where they are safer and happier. The pandemic has highlighted this issue as nothing else. Most rational people over the age of 50 know long-term care is in their future and want to plan for it, but don't know where to go for advice. So why aren't financial services professionals raising the issue with their clients? In most cases, they simply lack the knowledge to start the conversation. That's where NAIFA and the Certification for Long-Term Care come in. They are working together to bring CLTC, which is widely considered the best long-term care insurance sales course available anywhere, to you. In August and September, for the first time, CLTC is being offered online in 4 weekly 4-hour sessions. NAIFA-Indiana has long dreamed of being able to offer CLTC to its members, and at long last, NAIFA National has made this possible. Those of you who have attended my long-term care CEs know my curriculum includes many concepts I gleaned from CLTC. And CLTC's support goes way beyond the classroom. They send their graduates a magazine to keep them updated on long-term care issues. And they maintain a website with lots of great information and downloadable concept pieces. And what's better than getting CLTC online? Getting it at a discount. NAIFA members get steep discounts on the class fee for registering early. Go to NAIFA.org for more information or click the link in this email. And don't forget about the Limited and Extended Care Planning Center, NAIFA's online resource for all things long-term care. LECP and CLTC are two of the greatest resources you can have to help your clients plan for their long-term care. They are now both available at your fingertips. Long-term care is a daunting issue, but together we can take on anything.